Russ Thaler, I believe his name is, from the Tennis Channel, was commentating on the Grigor Dimitrov-Alex de Minaur match with doubles legend Mark Woodford. And he said the good news for Grigor Dimitrov is a lot of players these days are starting to believe more and more that they can beat Roger Federer. Hey, Russ, try telling that to David Goffin. Today on Coffee Break Tennis, we preview Grigor Dimitrov and Roger Federer, the first quarterfinal that we have set at this year's 2019 U.S. Open. Also right here, we've got several of your comments that we'll do towards the end of the show. We play clips, highlights from the press conferences of both David Goffin, the Gopher or Cousin Fed, and Roger Federer. We go through the draw and talk a little bit about tonight's matches that are coming up. We eagerly anticipate them. Are you excited for Wawrinka and Stan? Will anyone be eating a bagel in that match? And Boris Becker has some criticisms of Nick Kyrgios and the rest of the next gen. All that and nicht mehr on heute Tagens Coffee Break Tennis. Screw you, Mr. Goat. If I look like Tweedledee, you look like Tweedledum. Mr. Goat says, if one of us is Tweedledum, it's definitely me with the way I'm wearing my hat today. Thanks, Mr. Goat. Well, the real Mr. Goat, Roger Federer, would probably like this hat a lot. It's very popular in Japan. Today, Roger Federer faced a very good player, David Goffin, top 20 player, round of 16 at a major. These are usually tough matches. You very rarely see someone win in 1 hour and 19 minutes, 6-2, 6-2, 6-0. There were stretches of the match where Roger Federer won like 11, 12, maybe 13 points in a row. Not on his serve, on David Goffin's serve. One thing I said in last night's podcast was I have seen throughout the year times where it seems like Goffin was tweaking his serve a little, not necessarily messing with the technique or anything, just maybe going for more and trying to make it more of a weapon, because it makes a lot of sense. If you're David Goffin, you're very fast. You play very consistently in the rallies, although not so much today. A lot of a struggle. More on that in a moment. But you can get in rallies and hang with the best players in the world. You can beat a lot of other players, lower tier players for sure in the rallies, no problem. You've got a good return. If you can improve the service game, that will be a major weapon, will help you take your game to the next level. We've seen David Goffin take his game to a pretty high level. He had beat Roger Federer only a little over a year ago. But to me, today's biggest problem for David Goffin was he had the right game plan on serve. He knew he had to try some more. If you look at the top serve speeds, I think Goffin's top first serve speed was 123. Federer's 125, but the average drops way off for Goffin. Drops way off for Federer because, frankly, he didn't have to do a whole lot to hold serve today. Things got easier and easier for Roger Federer, who had some struggles early on with the backhand, missed a few serves, but that got fixed very quickly. But the forehand, one of the best forehand days we've seen from Roger Federer all year, from start to finish. A good day on the forehand. Put this on the screen really quick. I like to watch on ESPN, but I also like to listen to the commentators they put on the ESPN3 and the online ESPN outlets you can watch through their website. And they had Taylor Dent, great American tennis player, on there today commentating on the Federer match. And one of the things he talked about, a couple things interesting. He talked about Federer's backhand and said maybe one of the reasons why, if you compare it to, say, a Gasquet, maybe why Federer's backhand is not as good as his forehand, at least, is the take back is a little bit lower. And I'm guessing what Taylor Dent was saying there is with the higher take back for Gasquet, there's a lot more drop, therefore more acceleration. So maybe if you catch the ball a little later, you can still hit it pretty hard, whereas with Federer, it might look a little more pushy. If he starts catching the ball late and starts feeling nervous, not getting as much racket head speed, maybe is what Taylor Dent, I think he was saying, was the main point of pointing out who has a lower versus higher take back. To me, Roger Federer's backhand is always at its best. Think early 2017, especially when he's just taking it very early and timing it well. Because if you take it early, even with a slower swing, and don't get me wrong, Roger Federer produces plenty of racket head speed on his backhand. Maybe just Taylor Dent, I think, is trying to say with that comment, it's a little less than Gasquet, saying you'll get more drop and acceleration and whip when you take it up a little higher. But if you catch it early, good things always happen on every shot, especially if the technique is nice. And obviously, Federer has a gorgeous backhand. But, Taylor Dent was trying to find what could be wrong with it. Why is it not as good as his forehand, because his forehand clearly, and that was the other thing I wanted to point out that Taylor Dent said, his forehand is very unique for a few reasons. One, Taylor Dent pointed out the Federer forehand more accurate than probably anyone on tour. If it's not number one, it's very close. Two, it's a higher quality contact. Just catching the ball cleaner, center of the strings, basically what he's saying there. Then, if not number one, very close to the top. Three, and this is where Roger Federer definitely number one, able to take it earlier than anyone else on tour. And finally, number four, with the Eastern grip that Federer has. Taylor Dent was saying this more Western, semi-West. This is kind of extreme right now, but the more semi-Western extreme grips versus the Federer Eastern grip, where the palm's a little bit, instead of under the racket, the hand's a little more behind it, and the palm kind of gets through the ball and flattens it out more. Taylor Dent was saying how when you take someone out wide, it can get tricky with the spinnier semi-Western grips, but with that Eastern grip, it's going to be easier to do damage when you're taken out wide. Put those four things together, and that's why you have Roger Federer, one of the greatest forehands, if not the greatest forehand of all time, when you add it all together. And today, we definitely saw that. David Goffin definitely felt that. So before we look at some of the stats, I have stats from Dimitrov. I want to compare, because Dimitrov had a very good forehand day as well, and I think we could have a good match, but I don't see any way, especially with, you got to realize the last time Dimitrov had a good result with an F in it, whether it was a QF, a quarterfinal, a semifinal, or a final, I'm pretty sure that was the last time him and Roger Federer played, if memory serves me correctly. That would be Rotterdam 2018. This is February, I think. Roger Federer is only in Rotterdam ATP 500 tournament to clinch number one over Rafa Nadal because he sees an opportunity to do it. Of course, Rafa not playing any hardcourt tournaments, so there's a big opportunity at that part of the year. And Grigor Dimitrov gets the Federer in the final, and Federer wins 6-2, 6-2. That was the last time they played, and that was the last time Dimitrov, I can't think of another time where Dimitrov even made a quarterfinal anywhere. He must have, but I really can't. Definitely not a final. ATP 250, 500, 1,000, or definitely not a major.
He hasn't touched a lot of balls.
So before we go through these stats and talk about that real quick, let's play a clip of David Goffin in the press conference. I find his presser today more interesting than Roger's, talking about how difficult it is to face Roger Federer. And this is another reason why I think it's going to be very tricky for Grigor to get the win over Roger when they play their quarterfinal. I don't think Grigor even wins a set, maybe one. I give him a shot to win a set. I give him almost no chance to win the match unless he gets a lot of help from Roger. If Roger plays a couple sets against Grigor as poorly as he did the first set against Nagal, the first set against Zoomer, then I give Grigor a chance, and I still like Roger to win in 5 if that were to happen. So listen to David Goffin right here.
I started okay. I started with a break. All of a sudden, he's playing well, and then as soon as he's ahead and he has a set and then another set.
And Cousin Fed is right. He got the break. He was up 2-1, and then he loses 6 games in a row. And that's how it goes with Roger. He's going for his shots. He's mistiming it. He's missing some. All of a sudden, he's hitting a higher quality shot than you face against anyone else in the world. Happens like that.
He's playing so fast. He's serving on the line all the time, so you don't have a lot of rhythm. You don't have a lot of rallies. And as soon as you have, like I said, as soon as you have a chance, you miss the forehand or you miss the backhand.
I love that next clip. He's playing super fast, kind of like Kyrgios too. That's got to put pressure on you when the serves are so high quality and there's so little time to regroup in between. You just had a bad point or a tough point, maybe a point where you had a chance, as Goffin said. As soon as you do have a chance, you miss the ball, and then things get worse and worse and worse. And you see Federer, or insert Kyrgios even on his serve, you see them standing at the line, ready, waiting for you to line back up to return another serve likely on the line. But to me, this is the best part. This is where the factor for Grigor Dimitrov, who he's had big moments in his career, but it's been a while since he's felt what this feels like. Listen to David Goffin describe one of the toughest things about not just facing any big three, but especially Roger Federer, who gets more crowd support than anyone.
On Ash, against him, you can feel that all the 20,000 people are behind him as soon as he hit the ball. And all of a sudden, every shot is 10 times tougher than usually. And then you feel all of a sudden what you felt the day before during practice or the last matches, it feels completely different.
It sounds daunting. It almost sounds, and I'm sure some people out there would say this, no one who comes to this show, of course. We have only the highest integrity, highest tennis IQ individuals in the world, except for some of the haters watching this show right now. But some people might say, that's unfair. That's not fair that Roger gets that advantage. But it's an advantage that he built, a legacy that he built. He's earned every bit of it. So pop these stats on the screen. Let's take a look. Let's compare Federer versus Dimitrov, who had a good day as well. And by the way, when was the last time Federer won 9 out of 10 break points? I mean, this whole year, Roger's been pretty good on converting break point opportunities. And I believe if you look at the leaderboards for everyone in the tournament, Federer is now on top. Before this match, Federer was on top of everyone still in the tournament for winning on return first serve points, ahead of Djokovic and Nadal. And Federer was also on top for break points and break point conversions. I'm pretty sure in conversions, definitely for number, just pure number of breaks of serve. Roger's definitely going to throw 9 on that number. Roger's first place on the leaderboard for that now. But why did Roger get his serve broken twice? There's one bad thing to take from this match. And Goffin has a pretty good return, but as bad as Goffin was playing today, you would like to see Federer's second serve win percentage higher than 40. That's slightly alarming for the Federer fans. Whereas Grigor Dimitrov hit a number you would have been very happy to see as a Federer fan if Fed had hit it, 59%. Of course, Roger better, 83 on the first serve. Roger got a lot for the quality of serve he's hitting 68 in. I always talk about Craig O'Shaughnessy, the stats guru who works on Team Djokovic. And by the way, play this really quick. This is a clip of Roger Federer talking about analytics. You know, before we've heard people ask the questions like, is it unfair advantage that you players who win the most and have the most money are able to afford all the analytical data and blah, 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 blah. And it was a little snarky, and you don't get as good of an answer from the players when you go at it like that. But this time the question was more, how do you like it? How do you use it? And how do you find it not so helpful? And Federer had a great answer. Take a listen.
I think sometimes it can be very useful against certain player types, and sometimes I honestly think it's very misleading. So you have to be very, very careful how you use it. And the future will only use more of it. That's an opinion I have, just because it's too easy not to look at them and say, like, well, he serves 62% to the forehand, so you're like, do I cover the forehand at 60% or not? You know, and that can be very confusing, I think, for a young player, and that's why I think for the coach's job is really to feed the player with the right information, and not one that actually confuses the player more. I remember times where I looked at nothing other than how am I going to play? I don't even care how my opponent plays. So you can really go about it in many different ways, but I think sometimes it is quite interesting to look at the statistics.
And I think Federer is absolutely right. I think eventually, luckily for us, it won't even be a thing where you have to pay some analytics firm to dig up all the data. I think eventually, and I hope, us watching on TV, the fans, we're going to have way more. When you go to usopen.org or wimbledon.com, you're going to have way more statistical data to go through. That's really my hope for the sport. I think it's going to be more fun for the fans to have all that, and people will learn more about tennis. You know, I think it's easier to understand tennis when you have access to all that data. So as Federer said, it's going to be more and more available. People are going to use it more. It's going to be too easy to not use it. Why not use it when you have it there? But like Federer said, and the same thing for maybe why you don't see it so much for the fans, maybe a lot of people, it's kind of confusing. You don't know which numbers are important, which ones to really respect. And like Federer, he used that great example. If he serves out 60%, my opponent out wide on break points, does that mean I lean over 60% of the time? Obviously, that doesn't really work. So it's really important for the coach to go through the data and figure out what's the weakness here that we spot in the data. What's a strength of yours that fits very well with that weakness? So with that said, let's look at some data. Net points won, Dimitrov 10 for 14. That's not so bad. Federer outstanding, 19 out of 23. That's good for 83%. Receiving points won, Federer won 67% on return today. Again, Goffin, very confused with how to serve. He came out with a good strategy, I thought, David Goffin, trying to go for more in the first, which is what I said he'd need to do and would probably try to do if he was going to have a chance to win this match. Go for more in the first, but then he would miss a lot of first serves. And then he would double fault, not a lot, but enough to kind of scare him back to, okay, let's serve more careful. And then Federer would just totally take advantage of that. Then he'd try for more double faults, back and forth. It was a very vicious cycle for David Goffin, and it did not end well. So that's a great number. Receiving points won for Dimitrov against Alex de Minaur. Not the greatest serve, although it's low. It doesn't bounce very high, and it's pretty flat, and it's fairly quick. Do I have average speed? I don't have serve speeds on here, but De Minaur's serve is not the most comfortable to deal with. Obviously, he's not like John Isner, but maybe you could say that. But still, 36, that number needs to go up higher to beat Roger Federer, and I don't think it will. That number will go down. If Federer can hold, let's see, what did Goffin, who has a great return, do? He had 31% today, and I'm sure most of those are on second serve. If Federer can hold Dimitrov to the low 30s or even push him underwater, that sounds horrible. If he can push him under 30%, Dimitrov has no chance, unless he has the greatest serving day of his life and he wins 3 tiebreakers. Winners to unforced errors. Now take a look here. 20 winners on 44 unforced errors. That's really the story for Alex de Minaur. Grigor Dimitrov's forehand looked the best it's looked all year to me in any match I've watched him play this year. Dimitrov just looked a lot better in general than any time I've seen him play this year in that match I watched with de Minaur today. But the real story is de Minaur, usually very consistent, gets to a lot of balls, super fast. 20 winners and 44 unforced errors. Kind of sounds like he gave the match to Dimitrov. At least that's why it was straight sets. Dimitrov, further evidence of this, 31 winners on 37 unforced errors. That's a -6 differential. Roger Federer, 35 on 17. So that's not going to work for Grigor Dimitrov. And I'm not saying he has no chance. I'm saying is he's going to have to take it to a new level if he's going to somehow get to the semifinals here. But either way, good result for Grigor Dimitrov. Bravo to him for getting his game back and having a little help in a fairly easy draw. If you just go through the head-to-head on Grigor and Roger Federer really quick, put this on the screen. You look at a lot of beat-down feeling matches. A couple times where Federer got him 6-2, 6-2, 2015 in Brisbane, 2018 last time they played in Rotterdam in Das Nederland. They first played in Switzerland, 2013, 2014. I remember these matches being very excited to see. And Federer said himself, play this clip. Federer talked about how he basically confirms the baby fed, which we know Grigor does not like. I can't remember what tournament, but earlier this year, someone said, let's go baby fed. And Grigor stopped play, looked into the crowd and said, do I look like a baby to you? Very angry. So I'm not saying he's baby fed, but Roger Federer kind of does in this clip.
I like watching him. I like playing against him. Of course, when we play, I think it's as close as it gets as being a similar playing style. So I think for both of us, it's cool to play one another.
And I think that's mostly a compliment from Roger Federer. Baby fed is not so much a compliment, but saying this is as close as any two styles on tour get. And maybe that's part of why Dimitrov's had struggles. We talked about it a couple videos ago. It is not easy to play like Roger Federer. Sometimes the timing is not there, even for Roger Federer. So maybe Dimitrov trying to play a very difficult style to pull off. He's had some big highs. He's had some very low lows in the last year and change. Of course, Dimitrov did win a set in Brisbane 2016, wins a set that same year at the Australian Open 2016, and has not won a set since 2016 Australian Open round of 32. Age difference is almost exactly 10 years. And here's what you really need to see. The career win-loss is not so bad for Grigor, although he almost has as many losses as Federer's whole entire career already and way less wins. But look at the year-to-date. 12 wins on 15 losses. And the ATP, if you have more losses than wins, it's not a great season. Federer with almost $110 million more in prize money. So tonight, we go to the draw. Tonight, we've got Djokovic and Wawrinka up last on Arthur Ashe. And then we've got, what's his name? Dominik Koepfer aus Deutschland versus Danny Medvedev. Everyone wants to see Djokovic Medvedev, but to me, I'm almost just as excited to see Djokovic Stanislav the Minislav Wawrinka. Go to patreon.com/coffeebreaktennis, become a patron saint, and you will get our show tonight. We will go with the podcast as soon as the Djokovic match ends, and the Medvedev. As soon as the play concludes tonight, we will get right on it. If one finishes before the other, maybe we'll start the podcast early while the other matches are wrapping up, and kind of talk about the match while it plays out. And because of that, I'll be able to put it up like right away, and there'll be no wait tonight. So if you are a patron saint, you will get that podcast exclusive to you tonight. And of course, feel free to listen to it first thing tomorrow morning. Speaking of tomorrow morning, let's take a look at the schedule. Hang on to this draw. Tomorrow's schedule, we've got at noon start, Arthur Ashe Stadium, Naomi Osaka and Belinda Bencic, the Swiss Miss. Don't miss that. Sasha Zverev and Schwarty D, who I have a comment. I'm going to read some comments and we'll get out of here after this. I had some other interesting stuff, but we're running out of time. Schwarty D plays Sasha Zverev, which I think will be a pretty tough match unless Sasha Zverev, first serve has been pretty good. So maybe he has a chance to blow out of there with some big serving. But if he has to hit a lot of second serves, things can get dicey. Meanwhile, over at Louis Armstrong around the same time, Matteo Berrettini and Andre Rublev will play. This should be a pretty good match, actually, so take a look at that. I'll be watching both at the same time tomorrow. We will do a show. We'll do one show tomorrow. We'll go YouTube right after Rafa finishes up. Rafa is first on, enabling us to do that, so I won't have to be up super late making the show. 7 p.m., Arthur Ashe Stadium, Marin Cilic and Rafa Nadal. Should be a good match. I expect Rafa to win, but I expect a battle. And not before 5 p.m. on Louis Armstrong, Gael Monfils and Pablo Andafar. Real quick, Boris Becker, then I'll read some comments and we'll get out of here. Becker on Nick Kyrgios. We speak too much of Nick Kyrgios, and this is my fear for Nick Kyrgios and has been for, I already kind of wrote Nick Kyrgios off a year or two ago. And then I started having belief in him again, especially when he beat Rafa in Mexico this year. I thought, you know what? Maybe he's ready to be serious. Boris Becker, we speak too much of him. I take him seriously only if he reaches a Grand Slam semifinal or better, if he wins. At the end of the day, no one speaks about his fines and points penalties he got. It doesn't matter how much you have won. At my time, there were players who behaved much worse than Kyrgios, but they were world number ones, and they won this tournament, the U.S. Open. I won a Grand Slam at age 17, and I was more mature than many guys who are 25 years old or older now. And I think Boris Becker is probably right. Becker criticizes the next gen. They don't even reach the majors second week. Oh, great quote from Tony Godsick there, but no time today for that. 6-time major winner Boris Becker criticized the next gens before the semifinals were the expectation of the next gen, says Boris. Now they are struggling to reach the Zweite Woche, second week. They did not even meet the minimal expectation. Tsitsipas beat Federer, reached the semis. French Open was good. First round at Wimbledon. First round at U.S. Open. What happened? Asked Boris Becker. All right, read some comments and we'll get out of here. First up, Susan Chapman-Jones over at the Patreon page. By the way, Patreon is where we will post the show schedule. So always check there if you're wondering if we're going to cancel a show or when the next show is going to be. Speaking as a former professional stage actor, performance art, including tennis, requires a balance of pure talent and discipline. Fed is the perfect example. Unfortunately, Nick Kyrgios, supremely talented, especially his serves, which are like exploding bombs. But often the discipline is missing. He could have won several slams by now. It is such a shame. I couldn't agree more. By the way, I predict that Shapo will be winning majors in a few years' time. I was pretty impressed by Shapo against Gael Monfils, who gets down a lot of balls. For someone like Shapo, who's struggled this year just because he's got spectacular shots, but he's just missing way too much. To take that match so deep and have chances to win it for Shapo, that says a lot. He's going in the right direction again, and good for Shapo. Shapo has both discipline and talent, and his forehand is amazing. Also from Susan Chapman-Jones, I really like this one. I think Fed really has a chance to win the U.S. Open this year. He's improving with every match. If he gets to the final, I believe he'll be redlined. I do too, unless, what if he faced Rublev in the final? Alfred Bellin. And we got to give a very special shout out to Alfred Bellin, who, let me know if, comment below, Alfred, if I'm not pronouncing your last name. Alfred and his sons love Mr. Goat, love Coffee Break Tennis. Alfred signed up for Patreon and is the largest donator, contributor to the show of anyone in the history of the show. So thank you very much to Alfred, who's given us a shot in the arm to keep this thing going and growing. Alfred asks, my boys and I love the Gasparud Boy song. Any more hit singles in the works? Honestly, sometimes I'll have something in my mind, kind of knowing I might do this in the next few months. Like, I knew at the French Open I was going to take that Clash song, I fought the Law and the Law won, and turn it to I fought Nadal and Nadal won, at least a few weeks before the French Open. That popped in my head, and I knew I was going to do that. But most of the time, it just happens. I'm watching the match. It's almost always with Federer. I did a Nadal song and a Djokovic song almost because I felt like I had to. But with Federer, I get so excited watching the guy do well that things pop into my head and I make a song. So for now, no big ideas that I have, but don't be surprised if something excites me and an idea pops in my head and then I do it right away. Laura B on the Twitters. Matt will break it all down for you later, right, Matt? But the forehand, somebody asked, what happened to the Federer match today? And she puts it pretty well here. The forehand was ridiculous. The backhand, a delight, and his serving out of sight. Ended on a scorching backhand down the line. Yeah, Federer was kind of in a defensive position on match point. breaking Goffin for the 9th time, and he hits a backhand up the line winner after having a little bit of a struggle early in the match on the backhand. Damien Kust, not Damian Byrne, secret agent, but I did manage to sneak Damian Byrne in here because I always do. Federer just strolling around and going for his shots. Goffin not really believing in himself. Makes me go back to 2017 World Tour Finals match. What the WTF? He looked so hopeless in this matchup at times, so I'm still amazed with that win. Goffin has the ability to trouble Fed, but everything has to work that day. The serve has to be on, and he has to be very aggressive, and Fed needs to be a little bit off. Even though Fed wasn't terrible that day, Goffin was just great. And of course, I said Goffin has zero chance before that match. Ali G. Or LEG. I'm an Argentinian, and of course I want Diego to win, but I really want to see a Nadal-Monfils semifinal. Monfils deserves a great result in a slam, and this year he has been playing his best. A lot of people still love Monfils, including moi, and I would like to see that as well, but I don't have the belief that Monfils will beat Nadal here. Dangerous Paul with a comment that I like because I was kind of wondering in the last podcast, who does Kyrgios need to play to be motivated? Was Rublev not enough? And the next comment, I think, explains it even better than motivation because Kyrgios was playing pretty well for most of the match. In order to win a slam, Kyrgios needs to play Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, and then again Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, and then in the finals, one of the big three. They're the only players he doesn't play Call of Duty so much before a match, it seems. So it seems. But Nunya, people say, Nunya, why do you watch so much coffee break tennis? Nunya said, he commented that one time. I laughed so loud. Kyrgios is tremendously out of shape for a tennis player. It's obvious that he was tired while playing Rublev. Also, he's an a-hole and a crybaby. Stan, you're a crybaby. And Ioannis Chatsikiriakos, almost like Kyrgios. You underrate Monfils. I think he is the one that will capitalize on Nadal's half of the draw. Perhaps you forget that Gael went to the semifinals here. Was it the semifinals in 2016? I did forget that. I only remember the one where he lost to Roger, and that I think was 2014. Hit the music. We're getting out of here. I'm in such a good mood, I might grab you with the lobster claws tonight. Thank you for watching Coffee Break Tennis. I don't do this anymore. This was a thing I used to do with kids in tennis lessons, little kids, and one time one of them cried because he didn't want to be eaten by the lobster. Enjoy the matches tonight. If you're a patron saint, enjoy tonight's podcast. Otherwise, we will see you tomorrow after the conclusion of the Rafa Nadal match. See ya!